everybody. This is Jess from 3D Learning Experts, and you're listening to the LD Experts Podcast, the show for busy parents who want to help their kids with learning disabilities, or as I like to say, learning differences, go from surviving to thriving. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. So Valentine's is usually a holiday celebrated between lovers. However, we wanted to focus on the love of parents with their children. And so I'm really excited that two of our students' moms are going to be sharing their experiences with you and me today on our podcast interview. And coincidentally, both of the parents that you'll be hearing from have adult children. One is 19 and one is 20. So, these parents have experienced a long journey with their neurodiverse children, and they are here to share that with us today. So first you will hear from Sharon, and then you will hear from Melody. And if you are the parent of a neurodiverse child, if you would like to share your experiences with us on this podcast, I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at hello@3dlearningexperts.com, and we will schedule a time for me to interview you and learn more about your experience with your child so we can share it with other parents and make their lives just a little bit easier. Hello, everyone. Today, we are interviewing Sharon Nix, who is one of our students' moms. And I'm really excited that we can have this time to talk about how we love our children. And our neurodiverse children are sometimes a little bit harder to raise than your neurotypical kids. I don't know, maybe not. I don't have any neurotypical kids, so I don't know what it's like to raise neurotypical kids. And you also have 4 children. Are any of your kids neurotypical? So all of your kids are neurodiverse.
Yes. Yeah. That means the normies, right? That's the normies.
Yeah.
Even my one son, who never had any problem academically, he always did well, and he didn't need any accommodations or anything like that. Neurotypical, no, they all just think outside the box. But I think that is because
and we were talking earlier that there's nothing wrong with that there are superpowers that come from our neurodiversities as well. So that's one of the things I really want to bring out in our students, is helping them to understand that just because they struggle with reading or spelling or writing or math, that they still have superpowers, that they are really good at something, and often they know they're good at something, and it's usually sports or it's arts or it's music or something like that. You said you were in a band.
yeah. So music is super important.
But so, sometimes people don't value those things as much as academics, and we were not all created to be excellent students. We were not put on this earth to all get straight A's, but that is what our society expects of people today. So sometimes we need to just step back and remember that that's not what we were put here on earth for.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different programs out there, like you've heard of the magnet school programs. I think the public school tries to think outside of the box and help the kids that think that way too. But I don't know the perfect recipe.
Well, my daughter went to LVA, Las Vegas.
The Las Vegas Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came out in 1993 after I graduated. The only thing I wanted to do was sing and dance. That was the main school. Yeah.
But so when we moved to Texas, she had a long list of accommodations. Texas was amazing with her dyslexia, with everything. So we got to Las Vegas, We put her in school. She had her long list of accommodations, and they were like, nope,
Wow.
we're not going to do all these. They can't do all these. I was like, they do in Texas. She was like, no, we can't do that. So they took half of her accommodations off. And then she still had accommodations like not having to read out loud in class. And her English teacher would make her read out loud in class. So I'd have to come to school and tell the English teacher, her IEP says that she does not have to read out loud in class. So it was so hard for her to keep up with her academics. After 2 years, it wasn't worth it for her to continue with her passion. And that's when I started homeschooling her, was her junior year. So unfortunately, they don't necessarily try to accommodate the kids either.
And I don't even think our schools here recognize dyslexia, because I've always thought before I was dyslexic, they would tell you things like, what's normal? You're the one that told me that you showed me the elephant and said, it's this way, that way. I can't remember exactly what you said, but what you said made perfect sense at the moment. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, because he still gets his D's and B's backwards. And so this is the kind of thing that you guys would be working on.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But they just would dance around the whole thing. Oh, that's normal up until a certain age. Well, he's 15, he's still doing it. You know, obviously there's something, he's got some severe learning disabilities here, you know, he really needs help with those. They don't really, I don't think they address those specifically. They dance around everything and they just get them through it. That's what I feel like they did with me. I always say this, when they handed me my high school diploma, I thought to myself, I'm not kidding, I thought, I'm surprised I can even read. I didn't feel like I got really any kind of education. I must have, because I could read, right? I could do basic arithmetic, but I wasn't paying much attention, you know?
Well, and the average American graduates high school on an 8th grade reading level. That's the average American. That's not our neurodiverse kids. So people don't realize that the expectations are not very high, period. Community college is at an 8th grade reading level for that reason.
Well, that's the reason why I got my degree there. Actually, I'll tell you what, I got a nursing degree from there, and I'm telling you, the classes being smaller, those big college classes, the big lecture rooms, that stuff intimidated me. I learned better, and I really think that community college puts out some good nurses, because you get a lot of clinical time. You get more clinical time, I think.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with community college. My point was just that the reading level is not high.
I may not have made it in a university in all reality, but see, that's good that that's there then. I don't know, because I guess that's an accommodation for people like me, because you know, I think that there's a place for me in nursing. Maybe it's not ICU, okay, I admit it, you know what I mean? Maybe I'm not going to be running all those lines and stuff, that doesn't interest me, but the type of nursing that I'm in, I enjoy very much, and it's needed and necessary.
Well,
so.
and that's the perfect dream, is to do something you enjoy and it's needed.
And that fits your personality type and all that. You know?
What kind of nurse are you?
I worked a lot with geriatrics. I did a lot of home health. I really liked home health, because then you're with one patient at a time. You know, there isn't call bells going off. I mean, you have a normal workload, and it's hard work, don't get me wrong, but I liked that a lot. Now I'm working on an acute care floor, but I work with a lot of elderly patients. I could never do pediatrics. I cry every day. I couldn't. It's too sad for me to see kids sick, you know. So adult care, elderly care, mostly.
And I could never be a nurse. I mean, I was barely a nurse to my kids when they were sick. What? You're not feeling well? Just go stay in your bed all day. I'll bring you some food, some soup, and I'll come back and check on you later.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a good gig. And I'm glad that I did it. And that's what I want my kids to be able to do. I want them to be able to figure something out that they could go to school for. It doesn't have to be, you know, basically, for all intents and purposes, community college is kind of a trade school sort of concept, really. You know what I mean? And they could do a trade, they could do something, you know, but with McCoy in particular, I think that he should go to college, and I want him to, and I think he can, you know, with some help.
Yeah.
Real help.
Well, and his reading level will get up to a point where he can confidently go to community college. And like you said, you had a desire and a goal with going to nursing school. if someone has that desire and that goal, then they will work harder to accomplish that goal. My 22-year-old became a welder, and he was teaching welding for 4 years, since he was 18, 4 years. And then the company closed down that he was working for, so he got a job as a welder and he didn't like it. So now he's thinking of going back to school, which he did not want to go to college because writing is really hard for him. Reading is not a problem, but writing is his challenge. So, sometimes our timing is not exactly what society says, we should do it.
However, I don't think people should try to go to school and work and have babies at the same time. It's really not. But hey, you talk about superpowers. I think everybody's got superpowers before the age of 30. I mean, I must have to be able to do all that. How did you do that? Oh, I had superpowers. Right. It's rough.
All right, let's look at our list of questions. So when did you first notice that something was different about Boy?
Well, he was born my child, so I knew something was going to be different. Yeah, well, he struggled performing academically, for sure,
So like second grade?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried, we were mentioning magnet schools earlier. My third son went to a magnet school for elementary school, and he loved it. And it was like basically the theater school for the academy. I was going to live vicariously through somebody who was going to go to the Las Vegas Academy, But it was a long drive. It's rough. McCoy did not like that. Any kid that wants to go to a magnet school has to want to go there. But then again, me and his dad got divorced, so he was really struggling through just the changes that he was going through at home, But different, I don't know. I mean, he was already a boy who played with girl toys, so, that was, it's not so different now, but I still felt like I had to, have his back about it. So his handwriting, if you want to talk about academically, and actually my second son, the same way, they're both left-handed, and their handwriting is really very childlike. And even as adults, it's still very childlike, and it's very, I always noticed that the E's go like this. Instead of making the E this way, the E went that way. He was always inverting his D's and his D's, Maybe not anymore now that he's getting your program, but before I would still catch him going, when he was writing things down, trying to use his little tricks to remember because he still struggles with it, And I was saying that all through school. I think he's dyslexic. I think he needs some more center type training, but it's always just about passing the grade, passing the test, getting the credit. And what does that really do for you?
Well, and the reversals at this late age could also, if you don't notice that he improves through tutoring with the reversals, vision therapy would be your next step with that. Because my youngest son completed tutoring and still reversed a ton of letters, I think almost half the alphabet. And he went to vision therapy, and now he doesn't reverse any numbers. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Because the reversals aren't necessarily dyslexia. They're often vision processing. So I would like to demonstrate how our brains register reversals. This is a bouquet of flowers. And even on its side, it's a bouquet of flowers. And you flip it over onto the other side, it's still a bouquet of flowers. And even if I hold it upside down, it's still a bouquet of flowers. And that's how our brain registers reversals. Our brain thinks that a line and a circle should always be a bouquet of flowers. No, our brain thinks it should always be one thing though. However, in the English language, a line and a circle means 6 different things. It's a D, it's a B, it's a Q, it's a P, it's also a 6 and a 9. So our brain may take longer to comprehend that a line and a circle put together mean 6 different things. I hope that helps you understand one of the main reasons why people struggle with reversals, and that it is not dyslexia, because dyslexia is difficulty with words. That's reading words, spelling words, and communicating words. And now we are going to hear from Melody, another one of our wonderful parents at 3D Learning Experts, sharing a little bit about her son, Alan.
Nice to meet you, Jess. Thank you for all the wonderful work you've done with my son. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Well, I think this has been a big success story for him because all I hear is good things and I see good things. And I'm really very, very grateful to you. And you obviously have the knowledge to deal with these disabilities, and that's very important. And, they don't always want to, spell out the difficulties that they have, but they're quite severe, and so then sometimes that creates avoidance behavior. So I'm really glad that you've gotten through to him.
I'm glad too. That's great. So when did you first notice that something was different about him?
So he was born with, failing his AGPOR score. He was blue, and he had heart condition, and he had to have infant heart surgery. So from the very beginning, there was lots of OT. There was lots of, major medical stuff. And one of the things that he had his hand, which is nobody notices it now, but it was crushed and twisted, and it had syndactyly. So there were several. He was referred to Children's Hospital of Boston when he was 2.5, and there, this wonderful head of orthopedics, who was a specialist in these things, and it was groundbreaking at the time, was able to diagnose that it wasn't just his hand, that it was connected to his heart surgery, which he'd already had. To the insult in utero that affected, that created the syndrome that caused the dyslexia. So, and this was a new field at the time, and he was sent to development, where there was a specialist Janice Ware, who worked with infant cardiology patients who'd had infant heart surgery. And they had discovered that there was a correlation between early infant heart surgery and a series of developmental issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's sort of like, so it came about, and it was quite severe at that time. And when did I notice it as dyslexia? Probably, because the discussion at 2.5 was just about the hand. And we didn't know at the time that there were any developmental problems in terms of learning. But by the time he was 4, my father started getting after me because he taught me language very early. He was slow with language, and he was very slow with the alphabet. In other words, he couldn't retain that. Little games on the refrigerator with letters. It was clearly something. And then a friend of mine who had a dyslexic son, he was about 3.5, diagnosed him. And I thought, really? And then it was shortly after that, during OT for his hand, that they added, they independently added some cognitive elements. Now, they would spin him around in a little basket and make him throw balls at letters of his name. And they were explaining that he had a difficulty in decoding symbols. And that includes mathematics, of course, because those are also symbols. So it's been a long journey.
Yeah.
And,
So what are the challenges that you had raising him?
Yes, sometimes has a hard time expressing himself. Maybe it's just to me, I don't know.
Well, that is one of the characteristics that some people with dyslexia have, is dyslexia is difficulty with words. It's difficult to express your thoughts. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people with dyslexia are delayed with their learning to communicate. Like my youngest son didn't talk until he was 2.5.
Oh, he didn't talk. He did. 2 of my boys didn't. They had chronic ear infections though too. So
that's another characteristic of dyslexia, which I always thought was bizarre.
And 3 out of 4 of my boys had to have tubes in their ears. And McCoy, as a matter of fact, he couldn't hear, and I knew that he couldn't hear right. And I kept saying that. I'd say, he can't hear me, and people would go flat behind his head and go, oh, he can hear, see? And I'm like, no, and I knew it, that he wasn't hearing correctly. So when I took him to the doctor, they said, yeah, for sure. They tested his hearing, they put the tubes in his ears, and they said, for him, it would have been like hearing underwater. And he didn't talk. He just didn't talk. And it was weird because when he started, they put him in early childhood development, but they didn't do that with my first son. And that was the difference of the pediatrician. We switched pediatricians by the time I got to McCoy. And that pediatrician said, why isn't your child in early childhood development? I said, what are you talking about? I was like, oh my gosh, he's got the same problems, similar problems to what my second son had. And nobody said a thing to me about him, you know? So yeah, he went to that therapy class, and they had objects. They said, point to the thing that tells time. I didn't even know he knew that. He pointed to the watch. And I didn't even know he knew things that I didn't even know, you know? And I know he's smart, and I know they're all smart in their own ways. They just don't, I don't know. They had hearing, that's normal for kids, or common, you said.
It's one of the characteristics, that some people can have. Everyone has different signs of dyslexia. Now, my kids never had ear infections. Not one ear infection with 4 kids. But
wow,
my youngest one, right? But my youngest one didn't talk. Like, he would grunt.
Yes,
and we knew he would grunt.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what Montana would do. My second son, almost like a nasally thing, like a nasally. Well, he would grunt.
Yeah. Yeah, and so he would have different grunts for what he wanted, and we all knew what he wanted, so we didn't make him talk until he was 2.5, and I finally said to my other kids, I was like, we need to stop giving him stop giving him what he wants, and make him start talking. Yeah. And he started speech therapy in the early intervention program in Texas when he was 3. So it was shortly after that he started learning how to communicate. And then he aged out, or he graduated when he was in kindergarten from speech therapy. But then when he was 12, and he got his IEP, they recommended speech therapy for him again, just for 2 letters. And I was like, is that really worth it? And then I discovered that you can have the speech therapist help them with their communication. So I was like, okay, we'll have him do speech therapy if you help with his ability to communicate with people. And so that got put on his IEP. And so he worked on his L's and his R's, which are the last 2, the hardest 2 to pronounce. And they worked on his communication for 2 years. And then he graduated out of that at 16, I want to say. Maybe he's a little older than 12 and a little younger when he stops, because my math isn't matching up. But when you have 4 kids, you forget these things.
Believe me, I get that. I understand completely, his dad and I didn't have the best relationship. I decided at one point that I was going to start school. I graduated from licensed practical nursing school, 7 months pregnant with him.
Oh, wow.
And then went on to get my RN. And so I had to work, basically, and I couldn't be there all the time. And, I probably abandoned them by proxy, because I was a busy mom, and he has 3 brothers. And all those things,
But I mean, you don't want to put guilt on yourself about all of those things either, because I mean, his reading challenges aren't because you work full time.
Yeah, maybe not entirely, but I still feel like it had something to do with it, that
I was a full-time mom. I also was a realtor, but
well, no, you're probably right.
But I was there full-time with my kids. I read to them bedtime.
Yeah.
And I mean, they still all ended up, or 3 of them still ended up with dyslexia. And that's one thing, is a lot of people will put that burden on themselves. What did I didn't do, what if I'd done things differently? I mean, getting him the help now is the something differently that you can do. But until you know that that's a thing that will help, you can't blame yourself.
But I still think he's young enough that he can still learn. And if he really puts his mind to it, and understands why he's doing this, it can help him so much. It's better than being 40 and trying to figure it out. You know what I mean?
Well, and I mean, I tutored my husband at 44.
Yeah.
And he moved up 5 reading levels in 18 months.
Yeah.
So even at 40,
yeah,
it's not too late.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the oldest person who's done the program was like 91.
Writing is really hard. Also, the art of composing an essay, which one needs in college, that's also...
We do have a program that works amazingly well with helping them come up with the techniques, how to take notes, how to write their papers.
Fantastic.
So, before coming to 3D Learning Experts, how did you help your child with their struggles, reading, spelling?
To be honest, like I'm saying, academically, I don't know that I ever really helped my children that much. I didn't know how to I wasn't a disciplinarian type mom. I was like, oh, I'll do it, that it just, so I don't know that I really did. I don't know. I guess I always read to them when they were little because I always loved to read. So maybe, hopefully, I encourage them to care about education and learning. But other than that, zeroing in on a specific thing, I just can't say, I could always see that he was, I guess the way I thought at schools, and the IEPs and the going to the meetings and saying, hey, how's he doing? And showing up for all that, because I'm not a teacher. I know that educators know how to do this. I don't know how to educate like that, in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and being an advocate for your child until they can advocate for themselves is an important role.
Yeah.
He was very intelligent, so we, it took us a while to sort of grasp the severity of this. And when we got him into Montessori, he had remedial language learning because he was just clearly dyslexic. And this wonderful woman would sit with him in an empty room with 2 chairs and a table and no decorations on the walls. And he's 8. And after a year of this, she would see him, 3 times a week for 2 hours at a time, so 6 hours a week. And after about a semester of this, a little bit more than that, he said to me, Mother, I only learn from Kate. I don't learn anything from the Montessori school. I thought, this is
How old was he?
8. And I thought, this is really something. I mean, here's this kid, 8 years old, like most 8-year-olds, interested in lots of things other than looking at a 40-something woman across a table in an empty room. But that was his favorite time of the day. That was his favorite time of the day. That's the only time that he didn't feel sort of stressed out from not being able to keep up. And Montessori, it's, very self-directed, very, it's supposed to be very easy to learn those ways, and he couldn't make heads or tails out of it, and that's when I realized there's really a problem.
He's not alone with Montessori not being a good fit for our neurodiverse kids, and I think it is based on what you said, because it is child directed, and very often our kids don't have the executive functioning skills to direct themselves. They need the direction from someone else.
Yeah, there's definitely an executive function disorder.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with what is that other program? Waldorf. Very often parents will put their kids in Waldorf programs expecting that to work, and they don't work either.
Yeah, we got all those boxes. We've got all the equipment. It was expensive. Didn't work.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy to hear that our math program is working for Alex. And
oh, it's wonderful. It is really wonderful.
What do you think your child's strengths are? What is their superpower?
His kindness. He's very, very kind. And I appreciate that about him. Yeah, and people would literally come to me and say, your child is so kind. I saw him helping over here with this kid that was crying. And people would make it a point to stop and tell me what a nice kid what a nice person he is and how kind he is. So
Well, we don't have that a lot these days. A lot of times kids are just so mean
yeah,
and insensitive.
I think that's a great superpower.
Yeah. Okay, and what message to parents who have struggling kids would you like to share?
Just keep searching for what's going to work for them, I guess. You know, don't give up and think that your kids are just dumb. Because how's it go?
I'm not dumb, I'm dyslexic.
No, don't just think, oh, that's just too bad, too sad. You know, my kid's just stuck with this. I think there's always a way to cope with or overcome it even.
The brain can move and create whole new pathways, and also people can think outside the box with a slight neurodiversity. It creates incredible individuals that are treasures, and just never to be afraid, and to be very skeptical about help, but to keep looking, because there's wonderful people out there like yourself, and find the right help outside the family to protect that incredible intelligence that they carry.